Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Yojimbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike. As always, thanks for listening to the podcast where I talk all about Usagi Yojimbo, my journey going through it, and just talking about each and every issue. Thanks for listening. I love doing this podcast for each and every one of y'all who take time to listen to the little podcast. And we got a very good one for you this week. We are on Gin Chapter 1. Jin is my podcast partner for my other podcast, Otakuology. If you like anime and manga, definitely go check out the Otakuology podcast. But we're not talking about that right now. This is Gin Chapter 1, Lady Asano's story. So we get into this first issue of probably one of the, it is the last like big story for story arc for the ending of the first run of Usagi Yojimbo, without including the last story, which we will not talk about at this time. Well, I guess I could say the last two, because there's two short stories after this bigger story arc. But we have Gin running through the forest. We see him being chased by a bunch of Tokages. And Gin is running, jumping over trees, gets hit by a Tokage. One like jumps up and like goes like, wah! Almost like a velociraptor almost. Gets on Gin. They tumble down. They start to bite and scratch him. He goes to reach for his sword, and they all go after him, and he slices and dices some of the Tokage, and he actually cuts their heads off pretty violently, I want to say, in this little part. You see a little inside Tokage, and Gin is surrounded. He's like, come on, let's get this over with. And we see this guy come out, and he has a flute. He's like this cat guy. He's missing an eye. He's like a Pied Piper of sorts. And he's like, ha ha ha, so you come, bounty hunter, giving up so easily. Ha ha. And Gin's like holding up his fist in the air, shaking it. He says, why don't you come closer and find out? And he's like, no, I'm not going to come closer because you're helpless before me at this moment. And I'm going to enjoy watching you die, basically. And this mysterious guy, who I'm guessing Gin is after, sends his Tokage after Gin. They go overpower him, basically. They bite and scratch him. And Usagi comes in to save the day. And which, it's very nice of Usagi to come in and save the day. All the Tokage end up leaving because I guess they get scared or they get cut up. It's really hard to say. I think they get kind of scared. But they all leave, and the guy's like, oh, my pets, where are they going? And you see this bounty. I don't even think he gets a name. This bounty. He's like, murderer, assassin, killer. And he runs at Usagi, and Gin happens to be like, ha, you fiend. And actually gets the guy in the back. So Gin basically saves Usagi, his best friend. And we see that, Gin tells Usagi, thank you, I owe you one. And he's like, you mean you owe me another one? Because he owes Usagi a lot. But he's not paid his debts back, apparently. And he's like, I heard in town there was an idiot bounty hunter up this way, and I thought it might be you. And turns out, yep, it is. And Gin says, I thought I was alone in this hunt. But we could. There were a bunch of lizards and whatnot. I guess I could, as your best friend. I guess I could actually split the reward with you. And we get this like sly smile on Gin's face and Usagi's too. And Usagi says, I could have let him kill you. And Gin's like, what? You wouldn't let your best friend die now, would you? And Usagi's like, yeah, so you keep telling me, yeah, you're my best friend, And Gin says, it's going to take a few days to get the bounty. We're obviously going to have to find a place to stay. we can get a cheap place, and Usagi's like, oh, you're going to try to stiff me with the bill again, aren't you? And Gen's like, okay, fine, we'll get an expensive place. I can afford an expensive place, I guess. But let me rest now and, get some rest. I got cut up and bruised and whatnot, but, we can go from there. And he sits by a tree and kind of relaxes. And Gen happens to say, why are you staring at me like that? And Usagi says, I was just wondering. And Gen's like, what are you wondering exactly? He's like, how did you get your horn back? You, cut it off and in a duel a while ago. And Gen's like, oh, like a big boisterous laugh. He's like, I had a potter make one for me. It cost me a lot of money. But I've got my natural good looks again. And he's like, oh, I figured if Sato Ino can have a wooden nose, maybe I could have a ceramic horn, he says. Not gonna lie, at this point in the story, I actually like that Gin had his horn chopped off. I like that look. I thought it was cool and badass. I kind of dislike. I get what they were going for, but I kind of like that he had no horn, like it was cut off, kind of like Hellboy almost. Gin ends up going to the doctor, and he's got a bunch of bites and cuts on him. The doctor says, there's nothing to worry about really. In a few days rest, you'll get it all taken care of and whatnot. Usagi decides to go to the innkeeper, and he goes there. He sees these people. They're looking at him. And he's like, excuse me, samurai. One of the guy looking at him, it's a guy and a woman. They're looking at him. He's like, could you spare something for my lord's widow? It's been hard times, and we haven't had much to eat and whatnot. And the innkeeper gets mad and kind of shoos them away. And Usagi's like, wait, hold your horses. Later on, we find out that these are Usagi's guests now, and Usagi kind of thinks, what's going on? Why is this lord's why is she like asking for money and stuff like that? And the innkeeper kind of like berates them for being homeless and not having any money. But Usagi's like, no, these people are my guests. You will treat them as my guest, and you will give them food and whatnot, as he begrudgingly does, the innkeeper, and they start to eat and whatnot. And we see how like delicately and like well mannered this woman is, and how she like eats her food. She's not like really scarfing it down. She's very much like savoring her food. And we find out this woman is named Lady Asano of the Shiorigita clan, I think it is. I hope I pronounced that right. I gotta be honest, I probably butchered that. The Shiragita clan. Shiragita clan? Is it the Shiragita clan? Her husband, Lord Asano Nobu, he ran this clan, and they weren't like a really like, you've probably never heard of them, she says, but they did. They seem to do a bunch of stuff. Seem like a mid-sized clan, I would say. They happen to have somebody in their midst who kind of got their claws into the clan itself, and he was a serpent, as they like to call him, and he actually ended up killing Lady Asano's husband. He wound up washed up in a river, basically, is what she says. Lord Asano ended up basically dying the next day. Lady Asano ended up gathering the few Asano loyalists, including several of Murakami's, the hero of the Great War, because they were part of like the Great like Shogun War, as was what they said before, and they wanted to go hunt down the traitor Oda, because I forgot to mention that the traitor's name was Oda. Funny it's Oda, because Oda is like the creator of One Piece, a pretty good manga. After years, waiting patiently no longer, and they went to seek Oda himself, and it turns out that was a lifetime ago, and she actually had like, it was like a pension almost, like where she had money, but once she left the Asano land, she didn't have the money anymore. So like the money dried up and whatnot. And she became homeless. And for like the past 20 years, she's been looking for Oda homeless and, and whatnot. And Usagi says, that's very sad tale indeed. Why not give up your quest and return home to a life of peace? And this is where Lady Asano gets really mad. She's like, no, I'm not going to for my clan, for my life. Escape justice, never. I will avenge myself on Oda, even if it's my spirit must come back from Hades to do it himself. So I guess Hades is the thing in the Usagi Yojimbo universe. Very interesting. As they are talking, Gin shows up and he's like, "Oh, hi, Ronin, how's it going?" And Lady Asano is a gasp, and she's like, "General, it's you." And Gin's like, "I think you're a little crazy. I don't look like a general to you." And she's like, "Oh, but you look just like General Murakami. Sorry, Murakami." And Gen's like, "Murakami?" And Usagi says, "You know that?" Because Gen's like shocked. He is shook to his core. And he's like, "Yeah, I know who that is. He was my father." And Lady Asano's like, "Oh, son of the greatest Asano retainer. This makes you my vessel of the clan. And you are going to help us and carry out our mission." And Gin is like, "Nope, I am not doing this. I don't owe you or my father anything," he says. He gets very angry at this point. We've never really seen Gin very angry. We've seen him like annoyed and whatnot, but never like this angry. "I've come down to get something to eat, but I'm going to go eat in my room." He runs off and goes off to eat in his room. And we see Usagi and Lady Asano. And Usagi tells Lady Asano to forgive Genosuke his rudeness. And I've never seen him this upset before, he says. And Lady Asano says, "No, Usagi-san, he's right. I asked too much of him. It is unfair to expect one so young to carry out his father's vendetta." She bids farewell and she says, "Forgive me. You've been very kind," and to this foolish old woman, and she leaves. Usagi is very much, I don't want to say annoyed in this scene, but he ends up drinking his tea and whatnot. And we see Lady Asano, and I forget what her servant's name is, but it's time to leave the city. And we see in the background that people are like, "Make way, make way." And we see and hear that Magistrate Oda is actually come to the village, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's Oda." And Oda looks like one of those hairless cats. You see those like Sphinx cats with a mustache, I would say. And Lady Asano's bodyguard or servant, whatever you call him, he's like, "Oh, I had to sell my sword, but I still got my short sword, my dirk is what they call it, I believe. And if only we had more of our retainers with us. After all, he is a magistrate." And he's like, "Magistrate or not, I'm gonna avenge the house of Asano." You're like, "No, wait." And this does not end well for him at all. He charges at Oda, and they're like, "Assassin, stay back!" And you say, "No!" And they're like, "Don't kill him!" And he ends up dying, gasp. And he's like, "Forgive me, Lady Asano, I have failed you." And he dies. He dies a horrible death. And he's like, Lady Asano's like, "Damn you, Oda," and like kind of shakes her fist at him. And he's like, "Oh, Lady Asano, what a surprise." And Oda says to bring her with us. Throw the other one in the river for the fishes. Ha ha ha. And that is where this particular issue ends. I say this about most issues in the Usagi Yojimbo podcast, or Usagi Pajimbo podcast, but this issue was a lot of fun, I have to say. You know how we got Usagi's story in like issue 1 of this, or episode 1 of this podcast. Now we're getting Gen's story. Finally, I love Genosuke as a character. I'm glad to see him back. Like I say, as always, whenever he returns. But I really wanted a Gen backstory and a Gen story. If we ever got like a Gen like spinoff, I would be like all over that because he's a fun character. But to see a different side of Gen, very much like an ogre or an onion, Gen has multiple layers, as one might say. This is a good start for a big ending for like the last big story arc for the Usagi. The first run of Usagi Yojimbo, as I would say, is good. I want more Gen. I want more Gen in my Usagi. I know he comes back from time to time here and there. He's like one of the only returning characters. He's very much like a supporting character, I would say, like a big supporting character, and a lot of people like him, I believe. Like I said before, I don't like it that Gen has a prosthetic horn. I get what they're going for, like the symbolism between Ino and Gen. Like they both lost something and they had to replace it like with something fake. But like Gen and Ino, like they have almost like a very much like a what would you call it, like a rivalry of sorts. I would say like a love uh, uh, a love hate relationship kind of, but I kind of think they feel like they have like a respect for each other nowadays because we'll find out later. Ino's still alive. Spoilers. But Ino's still alive because Gen saved Ino and let him live. We'll learn that later on down the road. But yeah, I love seeing Usagi always get to hang out with Gen, and like I love their relationship in particular because it's like they very much have like a brother relationship, like older brother, younger brother, where like they kind of pick on each other and stuff, but in like a fun way, like a bantering way. I love it. I love what they got going on. Very much like a found family almost, I would say. But this is a good start to this particular story arc. It's a lot of fun. We get a lot of insight into Gen and more of his family history and stuff and how he doesn't like his father and whatnot. Gen has daddy issues. Just going to put that out there right now. He has daddy issues. And I don't remember if they ever get actually solved. I don't remember exactly because it's been a while since I've read this story. But I like it. Like I said, I like it that Gen gets center stage in this story. Except Lady Asano is also in this. And, but Gen gets center stage in this. He gets top billing in this story. Lady Asano gets second billing in this story, I guess you could say. But, it is what it is. If you like the podcast, thanks for listening. Tell your friends, rate and review the podcast. We had one the other day who left like a review on Spotify. I don't know if I should post it because I don't know if it was a joke or not. It was kind of an inappropriate sort of question, so I probably won't post it because it didn't really have anything to do with Usagi and anything like that, but or the podcast. It was weird. It was a weird comment. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Stay safe. Go read some Usagi Yojimbo, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.